The new year was just days old the night North Miami Beach police pulled up to this spot. Firefighters were busy dousing a blaze in a dumpster. And when the flames died down, cops made a gruesome discovery: the smoldering remains of a human body, now charred beyond recognition.
It's about as worse as it gets. You have a body that you need to identify before you can begin the investigation. We need to know who that person was, where they were, and it all stems from their identity. Basically at ground zero, we started.
It was beyond horrific, and for North Miami homicide detective Mike Gaudio, a case that began with a daunting challenge: figuring out who his victim was.
We had no identification. We didn't know if we were dealing with a male, female, race, anything. So you're basically starting at bare bones square one. You have nothing.
But one tiny clue left at the dumpster site gave the veteran cop a glimmer of hope.
After we had done our processing of the area, we discovered a small earring on the ground near the dumpster that seemed out of place, and we felt that we had a female.
The medical examiner would soon confirm that hunch.
We were able to tell that the body had 2 breast implants, so we felt safe with dealing with a female at this point. The autopsy later revealed that it was indeed a female in her mid-20s to early 30s.
But more than a day after the gruesome discovery in a North Miami dumpster, Detective Gaudio still had more questions than answers. He needed a break, and he got one. It came from another man who was looking for answers.
As luck would have it, we were at the medical examiner's office, and a call came in to the investigator there. The boyfriend was looking for his girlfriend who'd been missing for a day or so. And he was concerned about, her being either dead or in jail or in hospital, so he was calling around. He described her as a white female in her mid-20s. She had breast implants.
Kevin Klim and his girlfriend, Paula Sladewski, were vacationing in Miami from Detroit. They'd been out celebrating the New Year when Paula vanished. Kevin's description of Paula sounded a lot like Detective Gaudio's Jane Doe. When he described his girlfriend's perfect teeth, Detective Gaudio was able to confirm the worst with dental records. The victim who'd met such a terrible end was Paula Sladewski.
I heard one. And about a half hour later,
Paula was a blonde beauty with big aspirations of becoming a fashion model. Tall, thin, and gorgeous, she seemed to be well on her way. She'd had several photo shoots and even a tryout as a Playboy playmate.
she was striking. She's the center of attention, but, she liked the attention.
And Paula's friends and family were happy to give it to her. Here she is at her sister's wedding a few years ago. To her family, Paula was a real-life Barbie doll.
Barbie was famous, and Paula wanted to be famous. Barbie was beautiful. Paula was beautiful. Paula was full of life. She was always smiling, very happy-go-lucky, always the life of the party. I had a million friends. Everybody loved her.
That's part of what makes Paula's death so shocking and so mysterious. Detective Gaudio had solved one part of the mystery. He knew who his victim was, but he also knew he was now looking for a devious killer.
There was planning involved. Somebody made a conscious effort to go there with her.
Now, cops backtracked to the last place anyone had seen Paula alive, right in this nightclub. That's where Paula and Kevin had been partying. I'm joined now by Detective Gaudio.
Mr. Walsh.
Nice to meet you. You've been working long and hard on this case, but I want you to take us back to the night that Kevin and Paula showed up here.
Oh, Kevin and Paula show up here around 5:30 or so in the morning, Sunday morning. And she starts to dance a little seductively, and the guys are starting to circle around her, and he thinks she's in trouble. He goes up to her, tells her it's time to leave, and she doesn't want to go. She's having a good time. And at some point, an argument starts between the two of them. Security's made aware of the argument, and he's escorted out of the club.
So he's out on the street about what time?
It's around a little after 7.
And what does he do?
According to his account, he hangs out for a few minutes and then gets into a cab and heads back to the hotel.
So he leaves Paula here in the club. Then what happened?
Paula stays in the club, and at some point, security also asks her to leave.
When does anybody hear from Paula again?
Paula, she's found again later on, about 14 hours later, in North Miami in the dumpster.
14 hours. That's a big window, and cops are still working very hard to try to fill it in. Detective Gaudio started with the obvious. The last person he knew had been with Paula, Kevin Klim. Kevin stuck to his story that he and Paula had been separated when the bouncers tossed him out of the club.
I'm just in shock. I mean, I'm bawling. It's just the worst day of my life. Of course, I don't want to be thought of as a killer. And I know I'm not a killer, and I know what I did.
But at the most part, everything he says at this point seems accurate and checks out.
With Kevin's story checking out, Detective Gaudio switched gears. Instead of looking for people who'd seen Kevin the night of the murder, he needed to find people who'd seen Paula. That brought him back to Club Space. With 21 different surveillance camera angles inside the club, there were hundreds of people to look at. The detective started with a handful who'd been there all night and all morning, the bouncers.
We talked to all the bouncers, all the security personnel there, and some have recollection of Paula, some don't.
There's like 5 front doormen. Out of the 5 that worked the front door, 3 escorted her out, so they stand at the door and they saw her out front, and that's the last time I remember seeing her. The surveillance video that the police has is our surveillance video. My guys have been, at the police beck and call 24/7. We want to catch this guy.
But no one at the club remembered anything that could help move the case along.
You can see from the traffic.
It would take a lot of old-fashioned shoe leather. But after spending weeks hunting down anyone who might have been at or near the club the night Paula Sledusky was murdered, Detective Gaudio got what could be his most significant break yet. He found a witness who claims to have seen Paula outside the nightclub with an unidentified man.
They weren't able to elaborate about the extent of their relationship or conversation because he saw them from a distance away, but it did seem like a friendly conversation where there wasn't any type of force used to take her away. They were last seen walking away towards the area of a parking lot.
The witness helped police make this sketch. Cops stress that whoever this man is, he isn't necessarily the killer. He may have just taken Paula to another club, a party, or some other location where Paula may have met the killer. But one thing is certain. Detective Gaudio needs to speak with this man and still needs to find more witnesses who may have seen Paula Sledusky on January 3rd, the day she was so violently murdered.
You got a 6-foot striking blonde with hair down to her butt, brightest blue eyes you ever seen, the whitest bright teeth you ever seen, and just striking. She walks in the room, everybody turns their head. You're going to tell me she walks out in broad daylight and nobody saw anything? You got one witness? Come on.
We've got to help Detective Gaudio solve this horrible case. It's a real mystery. But here are some things to look for. Paula was last seen wearing this distinctive designer dress. Cops hope it might trigger a memory in someone who saw her the day she was murdered. Paula was also missing an earring that looked like this. And once again, this is a sketch of the man a witness claims to have seen Paula with outside the nightclub the morning she was murdered. Please look at all of these clues on our website, amw.com. And if you know anything that could help cops solve this case, make sure you call our hotline tonight at 1-800-CRIME-TV. We've got to find out who murdered this beautiful woman. Now, when we come back, the manhunt joins the Coast Guard and goes full throttle in the open sea. Stay with us.
And later, a sleepy southern town gets a wake-up call. Gang violence has gone country, but you can put one dangerous gangbanger out to pasture.
You can run, but you can't hide. I've been saying that to the bad guys for years. And that's the message the U.S. Coast Guard is sending to smugglers. Tonight we're on the inside here in Biscayne Bay. That's Miami over my shoulder. We're going to show you how hard the Coast Guard works to keep us all safe. Tonight I'm playing the target, and they're going to show you how they make a takedown at sea. When the Coast Guard really needs to stop a vessel, they send in an elite unit, the Maritime Safety and Security Team. I try to outrun them, but the Coast Guard's aviation wing makes sure I'll never make it out of sight. They counter every move I make. When I refuse to stop, the team uses advanced weapons tactics, firing warning shots across the bow of my vessel. But when that doesn't work, they move to Plan B, taking out the engine. Great job. Believe me, there's no escaping these guys when they're on the hunt. But now we got to get back to our manhunt. One of the greatest boxers of all time is seeking justice, and he really needs our help. Fight night at the legendary Blue Horizon in North Philadelphia. To those who love boxing, it's an elegant dance, a respite from the streets, a brotherhood.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? We are now coming to a very serious part of our program this evening.
This institution is not just a site for boxing. It really takes on a family atmosphere and a synergy and energy that most institutions don't have.
In this business, everything feeds off of itself. It's not just the fighters. It's not just the ref, the announcer, the ring card girls, the fans. It's everybody together.
And of all the families on the Philadelphia boxing scene, none are more prominent than the clan headed by former champ, Smokin' Joe Frazier.
When you speak about the Fraziers, you're talking about the history of boxing in Philadelphia. They represent boxing beautifully, but they represent our community well.
Peter Lyde Jr. had been part of the Frazier family since age 6 when his dad, Peter Sr., married Smokin' Joe's daughter, Jackie, a municipal court judge and former boxer herself.
He was a clean-cut kid. He was a fair kid. He was a great young man, and everybody loved him.
The gym was a safe haven for our children. We locked the doors. They played the speed bag. They played the heavy bags. It was a great place to raise them.
At various times, Peter Sr. was a security manager and matchmaker at the Blue Horizon, with Peter Jr. as his ever-present sidekick.
This kid is so big and so strong. He'd see you and hug you and pick you up, but he could literally lift you right off your feet.
First you see him, you're intimidated naturally. I mean, he was probably 6, 7, and you see him 5 minutes later just laughing and giggling, and it's just like, wow, that's a big, fun-loving dude.
Every time you met him, he made you feel like he was excited and he was overjoyed that you were there that day. There's a special light around that kid. It really was.
When Peter Jr. graduated high school, his father helped him get a union card and a labor's job at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. But he also picked up a few dollars working security at the Blue Horizon and at bars and nightclubs around Philadelphia.
When you come to the doorway and you got somebody the size of the doorway checking the IDs, there was almost never a problem.
And it would have stayed that way if people in North Philly still settled their differences with their fists. May 31st, 2009, Peter Lye Jr. agreed to work the door at a neighborhood tavern called Pleasures on the Ridge.
The bars in that area could be rough. It could be very, very rough.
A lot of alcohol, a lot of people, and unfortunately an argument broke out.
The dispute started, cops say, when an ex-con named Rodney Evans accused another patron of taking his bar stool.
That leads to Rodney Evans producing a handgun. We know he initially points that up into the air, so it's very visible. The second individual makes an attempt to run out the side door, and as he's fleeing, he produces his own handgun. There's probably upwards of 75 to 100 people who are running out of the bar. They're running into a direct line of fire of these two guys who are shooting at one another.
Peter Jr. was used to clearing a wide path wherever he walked and stepped in to end the trouble.
We believe that Peter moved forward to the confrontation in an attempt to either defuse it or to help the people that were running out of the bar get out of the way.
But as the second gunman fired at Rodney Evans, cops say he inadvertently shot Peter Jr., piercing his lungs and heart.
Peter's back here. Once he's struck by the bullet, he runs along the sidewalk here. He comes around to the front entrance of the bar. Once he gets inside the bar, he basically collapses on the ground, and that's where medical help and the police find him.
When police picked up Rodney Evans, he refused to disclose anything about his enemy in the barroom shootout. As for the patrons Peter Jr. gave his life to protect, they've also clung to North Philly's warped code of silence.
There's no question in my mind someone that I know knows who did it. When a man has a son, we look forward to him becoming this man even better than what you are. I know they got this no snitching thing going on, but you know, if it happened one of them, they'd be begging somebody to snitch on them to happen to their kid. You know, they'd be begging.
And tonight, we want to take a moment to remember Peter Lye Jr., a family member of the legendary Blue Horizon.
I wanted to let the community know that the Blue Horizon's heart was broken when one of its family members passed in such a way. And this way, all of us could take part in sharing our love for the Peter Lye family in recognition of their son.
It's been hurting, and it's still hurting. I never would have thought that this would happen to him, because he was a lovely guy.
As Peter's dad said, there were lots of witnesses to that murder. And if you're one of those witnesses, you got to forget about all that stop snitching crap and do the right thing. 1-800-CRIME-TV. I guarantee you can remain anonymous. The next time that guy shoots somebody, it might be one of your loved ones. Now, we got a lot more from the high seas when we come back, so stay with us.
Next.
Coffee's ready?
The family business was a tradition in his small hometown.
Get the truck!
But one fateful morning changed everything he thought he knew about his quiet country life. Now, we're joining his fight and going after the man cops say marked him for death.
Sector is Dolphin Roger. We're en route for person in the water.
Emergency rescue missions like the one the Coast Guard is practicing here are a big part of the job. When accidents happen at sea and lives are in danger, there's no room for mistakes. I spent a lot of time on boats, and I gotta tell you, it's inspiring to see how this unit works together. Now, we gotta work together to get some justice in a case that shows you how gang violence can touch anyone, anywhere. Gallivant's Ferry's an isolated hamlet in South Carolina's tobacco country, and it's where Craig Martin's family has run their convenience store and cafe for 4 generations.
This store I was raised in I pumped gas here when it was 59 cents a gallon. And my granddad had it, then my dad run it for 17 years, and then I run it. It's been in it 34 years.
Good morning, Craig. Coffee fresh?
Life's really good here, because no matter what happens, everyone around here will chip in and help one another.
Kimberly O'Neill was a local fixture in town because of her paper route.
She'd get her papers in the box, and sometimes she'd grab her a drink.
Coffee's ready?
Thank you, Craig. You're the first face.
She was just a great person, you know.
All right, take care.
But for all its small-town charm, there's been a growing problem in Gallivant's Ferry, and it's got U.S. Marshals concerned. They've seen a major spike in gang activity, both from outsiders coming in and locals like Antonio Gilbert, a violent ex-con and the so-called general of a Bloods offshoot.
Gilbert was the head of a local gang in the Mullen, South Carolina area, and it's fertile ground for recruitment.
In June of 2009, marshals say Gilbert set his sights on a troubled 14-year-old.
So you down, white boy?
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Everyone wants in, but don't want to do nothing to earn it.
That ain't me. I'll put the work in. Believe that.
Let's see about that.
Gilbert solicited him to take part in this gang initiation.
This is a chance for me to make a name for myself. He said, I got to do a robbery. Some local business. Can you help me out, Mama?
You realize what you're asking me to do? Oh, there better be something in it for us.
So you think you might know somebody?
Coffee ready?
I think I do.
They believed it was easy money. She was the transportation to and from the crime scene. And they went out there to pull the job. They're dressed wrapped in plastic. Gilbert's armed with a gun.
Remember, he'll be distracted by those papers not being in the box. That's your chance. Use these on his hands.
It's game time. Don't mess this up.
You call me when you're done, baby.
When he's done, he'll be mine. Let's go! Get in the trunk!
Here, take the money.
No, put the money in the back of the truck. You get in the back of the
I felt I was going to have to try to fight back and take my chances. If I died, I wanted to die on my home turf. I didn't want to be took to the woods somewhere where nobody would find me.
Get in! What are you doing standing there? Say, get in!
Where are you taking me?
Shut up! Was I talking to you? And stop looking at me! What are you doing this thing?
I felt them when they come loose.
You know what I'm stick?
No. I just held them behind my back. At that time, I seen that I had a chance to go for the gun. I stuck it in his chest and tried to fire it, and it wouldn't shoot. So that's when I got really frustrated and spun it around and started hitting him in the face with it. He had long fingernails, and I could feel it cutting. And he just kept digging and digging till finally it popped. It blinded me in my left eye.
Stabbed 21 times, his left eye ripped out of its socket, cops say Craig was left there to die by Gilbert and the teenager.
I laid there, tried to get my body to calm down where I wouldn't bleed to death.
Mom, you gotta come get us where we talked about.
Coming, Kevin. I'm on my way.
Man, give me that phone. Let's go.
After cops found Craig's cell phone, they traced back the last call on it. It gave them a huge break in the case.
This is the victim's phone. Yours is the last number he dialed.
Okay. Maybe I had something to do with the robbery.
So who called you?
All right, maybe my boy had something to do with it, too.
She gave her son up first 5 minutes. It's disgraceful. That's not a parent. And it begs the question, can you rehabilitate a child who's been brought up in that type of household?
So I suppose you want to know who else was involved, huh?
Now would be the time.
It took probably the better part of an hour to get her to give up Antonio Gilbert.
But by then, Gilbert was long gone. Gilbert leads a transient lifestyle and could be traveling in the Carolinas. He's worked on tobacco farms and performs manual labor. But cops believe he's probably earning most of his money dealing marijuana and crack. If you know where Antonio Gilbert is hiding tonight, call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-TV. Gilbert is a real thug, and that's why we gotta grab him. And it's also why he's on the Gang Tech Most Wanted list, a list of the nation's worst gangbangers. Here are two other lowlifes on that list who the U.S. Marshals and other agencies involved in Gang Tech need us to look out for. Jarrell Roberson, wanted for killing a U.S. serviceman in Arizona. And Brian Baker, charged with attempted murder in Oregon. Go to our website, amw.com, to check out the whole list. Let's get some more of these dangerous creeps off the streets.
Still ahead.
I walked over to the door and I realized there was a person standing there.
Find out why the frightening stranger at the door had a familiar face.
When the catastrophic earthquake hit Haiti, I knew I had to do something to help. So I teamed up with an old friend, Florida entrepreneur Hank Asher, and flew into Port-au-Prince. We just landed here in Haiti. We've got water, food, and 11 people that are going to try to figure out how to do something here in Haiti with all the displaced children. In the chaos, it's impossible to estimate how many children have been displaced from their families, or even worse, orphaned. But I do know this, relief workers are overwhelmed.
How do you know who is who? Oh, we've begun to identify, but it's a daunting task.
I'm really concerned that these traumatized kids could become easy targets for predators. Human trafficking is a problem in Haiti under the best circumstances.
In an earthquake situation, there's no infrastructure. It's total chaos.
Dr. Barth Green and his team from the University of Miami and Project Metashare are some of the unsung heroes of this tragedy. They've set up triage units and have been working nonstop, helping the injured and reuniting families, one child at a time.
What we're trying to do is get the kids who don't have identified family to a safe place where they're going to look for their family.
Two of our volunteers went on the radio today and asked if anybody knew this kid, and his grandma showed up today.
Oh, nice.
Grandma thought he was dead, and the kid thought his parents were dead.
There just aren't enough success stories like that. Tonight, I want to remind you that the families of Haiti, especially the children, desperately need our help.
I think it's hard for people to comprehend that they've been through so much, they've been hurt or injured. You get them save their lives, and then they have no one in the world. Every one of these kids you're looking at, who are lying alone, it's because they're orphans, and we're committed to not leaving anyone behind.
Now, let me tell you, the conditions down in Haiti are the most devastating and dire I've ever seen anywhere. And the U.S. Coast Guard has been at the forefront of the relief effort. This is Captain Scott Bushman. He's one of the officers who coordinated the Coast Guard response from right here in Miami. Captain, tell me, you guys were on the ground right from the beginning.
When we heard about the news on January 12th, Tuesday afternoon, we immediately started dispatching our cutters that were in the area on other missions to start evacuating American citizens, some of the most badly injured people, and doing some damage assessments and setting up some immediate medical triage facilities.
I saw your men and women all over the place when I got down there. What were some of the challenges you faced as the first group in there?
Well, the challenges were some of the devastation. The devastation is enormous. So one of the things one of our ships did early on was to provide some type of rudimentary air traffic control system so we could get some air traffic in and out of there.
Yeah, they really need you there. Port-au-Prince is just not even functional. It's devastating.
That's right, John. We really need to, not only for long-term relief, but to help rebuild that country, have to have the ports up and running. We've been using a lot of our expertise to do that.
Well, everybody at the Coast Guard should be proud of all the good work you did down there, and we love being your partner. Keep it up. Now, tonight, let's help our partners out by solving some mysteries at sea.
We requested a helicopter to be on scene.
When a distress call came into the Coast Guard's command center in Portsmouth, Virginia on May 10, 2009, Lieutenant Raymond McKay's training kicked in.
At around 10 p.m., we got a call from a man saying that his brother, Larry Deffenbaugh, was gone to the aft part of his boat and had possibly gone in the water.
He told me to drive a little bit, and he was back there messing around, and next thing I know, he's not on the boat.
We immediately issued an urgent marine information broadcast and launched a helicopter from Air Station Elizabeth City and a small boat from Coast Guard Station Little Creek.
For 13 hours, as many as 40 Coast Guardsmen and first responders scoured the lower Chesapeake Bay, looking for the missing man.
When we didn't find anything, it frustrated us at first because we kind of felt that we were on there quickly, on scene quickly, and we had enough assets to cover the entire area.
But the next day, Lieutenant McKay's frustration turned into suspicion.
I got a call from the Maryland State's Attorney Office saying that they were looking for a Mr. Larry Deffenbaugh, and they were basically looking for him for an outstanding warrant.
The lieutenant learned that Deffenbaugh was a con artist, convicted of ripping off grieving families in a cemetery plot scam. 2 days before he was to face a judge on an alleged probation violation, he suddenly decided to go fishing with his brother.
Mr. Deffenbaugh was a good swimmer. He's an experienced mariner, and he's used to being on the water.
This is the boat Deffenbaugh rented the night of his disappearance, a boat Lieutenant McKay believes he used to perpetrate another scam.
When I learned Larry Deffenbaugh may have faked his own death, I felt very angry. We invest a lot of time and money into these searches. We also put our crews at risk every time we launch them.
Larry Deffenbaugh's an avid scuba diver who often travels to the Bahamas, but he's also very familiar with the entire eastern seaboard and could be hiding somewhere in the region tonight. If you've seen him, call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Police Fire Medical.
Hi. I came down to the Pompano Beach fishing pier.
Mm-hmm.
The body laying in the water right by the pier.
When Broward County, Florida homicide investigator Glenn Bucata responded to a 911 call about a body in the water, he considered it a routine, if unfortunate, incident.
Going to the beach on a drowning, which does happen here in our coastline, it's not that uncommon.
But then one body turned into three.
I knew that when we had 3 females wash up the same area, the same day, that this was bigger than our agency can handle, because I knew that this had to be some type of dealings with human smuggling.
Another 911 call confirmed his suspicion.
I was talking to my neighbor and saw a black male and a black female coming off the beach with a large suitcase just before the other people found the body. Now they're racing off the beach.
The people spotted at the beach were rounded up and interviewed by police. The story they told was a harrowing tale of survival. They were Haitians who'd paid their life savings to be crammed into a small fishing boat bound for Florida and what they hoped would be a new life in a prosperous country. The journey went smoothly until they neared the coast. About a mile offshore, the captain gave a fateful order.
Get off my boat!
Using a gun, the captain forced his human cargo off the boat and into the deep water. There were no life jackets. Authorities tracked down the boat's captain and arrested him. He told them he was just one of many captains running human cargo, all working for a man named Devon Russell.
What Devon Russell would do is he would go out and recruit these people, tell them of a better life. Devon Russell, based on the intel that I have, is still smuggling humans.
Russell lives in the Bahamas, but he was recently seen in Jamaica. He sometimes travels to South Florida and also has connections in New York where he's wanted on weapons charges. You can put an end to Devon Russell's disgusting business tonight. If you know where he is, call our hotline.
Coming up, we went looking for a killer in a secret world few had seen. Tonight, the story ends in a way few could believe.
Right now, John Lieberman has the story of a guy who had a really big secret. But as you'll see, he just couldn't keep it to himself.
The historic Roosevelt neighborhood in downtown Phoenix is the place Robert Miley has called home for 3 decades.
And it's sort of a prized neighborhood, quiet, neighbors know each other.
To help protect his community and his city, Robert started an intervention program where troubled kids channel their anger into art.
Release the Fear is an organization that works with at-risk youth, and we try to keep people out of jail, interestingly enough.
Little did Robert know, on a warm evening in late December of 2009, he would be trying to put someone in jail.
We just came back from a long flight, and so I was sitting here unwinding with a glass of wine.
It was December 27th, and Robert was recovering from the craziness of the holidays when suddenly there was a noise at his back door.
I walked over to the door, and I realized there was a person standing there, and he said, "You're supposed to leave the door unlocked so I can do my work." And I went, "What?" I'm like, "What work? What are you talking about?" And they said, "The lumber's inside. I need to do my work." And I said, "Go away." And I picked up the phone and called 911.
Phoenix 911.
A guy just knocked on my back door and said, "Can you let me in?"
The doors and windows locked?
Yeah. He's walking to the door. He's knocking on the door again.
He's knocking on the door right now?
Yeah.
I was pretty much on scene just one street north of where the call came out.
Sergeant Robert Neville wasted no time reacting to the call that came over the radio as a burglary in progress.
As I got to this corner, I started hearing, it sounded like maybe leaves or branches breaking in the backyard. I stood up on a cable box and then just barely looked over the fence to see the suspect come walking around the corner of a detached garage right towards me. I stood all the way up, drew my weapon, and ordered him, told him, "Police, stop right there. Show me your hands."
Neville and his team of officers locked up the man and hauled him off to jail. While police were interviewing the guy they just arrested for trespassing, they received a tip that he could be a guy we'd been hunting for something much more serious. The tipster said the man in custody was Michael Chavez. As we've told you, Chavez was a lumper, a guy who helps truck drivers. Connecticut cops wanted to talk to Chavez because he was the last man seen with another lumper, Dale Anderson. Dale was beaten to death with a baseball bat in the back of a trailer in April of 2009. The latest leads into AMW told us that in October, Chavez jumped out of a truck, ran into the Texas desert, and vanished. But just as the trail had gone cold, Phoenix cops received this intriguing new lead, one they knew they needed to follow up on. Remember that tip that came in? It came right from the fugitive's mouth.
While they were doing the paperwork, he kind of started bragging, "Hey, I was on America's Most Wanted." They said they kind of just brushed it off, "Yeah, whatever," at first. But he was persistent.
So cops went to our website, and sure enough, the man who most likely would have been released quickly on a minor charge had just ratted himself out as an accused killer.
When somebody gives us tips on themselves, it's almost incredulous at first. You're like, really?
Had he kept his mouth shut,
I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now.
And there was one more shocker. Cops say Chavez then confessed to the murder of Dale Anderson. And with AMW cameras rolling, Chavez tried to justify what he'd done.
He was drunk. I went off on him about pissing in the back of the truck. That's where I sleep. Came after me. That's all I have to say on that. I don't want to say anymore.
Chavez can rationalize all he wants, but the bottom line is he ran from the law for more than 8 months.
Did you see yourself on America's Most Wanted?
Yes, sir.
What'd you think when you saw yourself?
Kind of freaked me out.
Were you relieved when the police showed up?
Pretty much, yeah.
And that explains why Chavez dropped a dime on himself with a nice assist from a very relieved Robert Miley.
When you see the footage of him in handcuffs as a guy charged with murder, what do you think will go through your head?
Wow. My lucky.
Well, that story just goes to show you that you never really know where the next great tip might come from. But since I don't think Chavez is starting a whole new trend of fugitives becoming tipsters, I'm still counting on your tips for our next big capture. Now stay with us. We got a whole lot more from Miami. Your nominations of brave first responders are coming in from across the country for our 6th annual AMW All-Star Contest. Now it's time for you to choose the first of 8 weekly finalists. Voting opens Monday, and you can vote once a day, every day. Then in May, you'll choose one of the finalists as the 2010 AMW All-Star. I'll meet the winner at the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series All-Star Challenge in Charlotte, North Carolina, and give them a check for $10,000. Do you know a heroic first responder? You can nominate them at amw.com. Just tell us who they are and why you think they're an all-star. Remember, voting for our first weekly finalist begins Monday, and you can vote once a day, every day at amw.com. Log in and make sure your favorite hero gets the recognition an all-star deserves. Now, before we go, I want to thank the men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard and the North Miami Police Department for helping make tonight's program possible. Until I see you next week.